Welcome to the Sober and Wellness Podcast. If you're a businesswoman seeking to elevate your life and unlock your full potential, you are in the right place. I am your host, Abigail Padro, and I am passionate about helping you achieve your next level. We will dive into honest conversation about sobriety, how faith can be a powerful anchor. My goal is to empower you to become the best version of yourself and excel in business, relationship, and beyond. Let's embark in this journey together, and I will provide you the tools and inspiration you need to live an alcohol-free life. Welcome, friends, to the Sober and Wellness Podcast. I am Abigail Padro, your host, and today I'm super excited. I have David and Amy here in the show today, sharing their story, which I'm looking forward to it. As a couple navigating life together, they have a wealth of wisdom to share on their unique perspective and experiences of navigating sobriety. So I am ready. Hope you guys are ready too. Welcome, David and Amy. How you guys doing?
Thank you.
We're
Thank you
good.
for
Thank
having
you.
us. And we're doing well today, I think.
Yeah.
Finally, we get a weekend off from everything, and it's a long weekend here in Canada, Victoria Day. So we're like, the one weekend we have nothing planned, and now we're like, what are we gonna do? We didn't plan any,
No, nothing. We didn't plan anything.
absolutely nothing. Yeah. So it's days like this that I'm kind of like, now that we're sober, and now that you're like, you didn't plan anything, you're just like, I'm gonna just relax at home,
But it's
and then you're kind of like,
kind of hard to relax at home because it's always like go, go, go. And then, okay, we don't have anything planned.
mhm,
What are we doing?
yeah.
Be
I
at the
think
Sober and
I think
Wellness Podcast.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
exactly.
Well, you guys are in
I think that's good.
Vancouver, right? So let's just dive in. For the people that don't know you, can you start by
Yes.
telling your story and what made you start into looking into living a sober life? Since, as we know, that's a very unusual thing nowadays. And I also
Yeah.
want to know Amy's perspective and how she got into it and all of that.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I was just thinking the other day, actually this week, that I am about a year and a half sober now. And this is around the same time that I had in the past. This is the second time that I've taken sobriety seriously. The first time around really was due to my body just saying no more. And literally my life saying, that's it, David. You're at a certain point. I'm 42 years old, and I have three boys. 16, 14, and 12. And my relationship with alcohol didn't start off as a complicated one. Like I started drinking it when I was 15 years old, and uh, it was more of like a social thing at first. Kids trying alcohol. I came from a very Christian household, so alcohol was never present at home. My parents never drank. They didn't have any vices like that. If anything, their vice was going to church. And my father's personal vices was watching TV and eating food, which when I was growing up, I didn't realize that I knew something was going on at home that I didn't like. I just couldn't pinpoint it because, like anytime that I would get upset at my parents for anything, like, my dad was very neglectful. He didn't grow up with a dad either. He grew up on the streets, and he didn't grow up knowing what a father figure looked like. So when it came down to being our father figure, I have a brother as well, a younger brother. We got neglected by our father, even though he lived in the same household that we did. And for me, same thing, same kind of. Even though he was there, it was more like parenting from afar. As long as I was alive and I was kept alive and surviving, I think that they thought that they were doing fine. Praying to God and leading that kind of life was gonna be the one that was gonna keep us together. So I went with the flow a lot and just kind of did what I did. And I spent a lot of time on the streets. Like I grew up in El Salvador at first. I moved to Canada when I was 8. But even in El Salvador, I came to Canada when I was 8. So during that time that I was in El Salvador, I spent a lot of time on the streets, unsupervised, spending time with older kids, 18-year-olds. They would come and knock on my mom's door and be like, "Hey, can David come out and play?" and I would be hanging out with these kids. And I don't really remember how, I don't have any of those memories because we were going through war. We did, you know, we ended up leaving El Salvador due to the war in El Salvador and fleeing the country. And so all of those memories are kind of like bunched up and not really coherent for me. So anyways, I got into alcohol at 15, and it didn't really become prevalent until my 20s when I started clubbing and I started going out to the bars and hanging out at nightclubs. The nightclub scene here isn't as big as Miami or any of those places in Florida whatsoever, but they're still there. Uh, and during that time, I met, I was going to high school. I went into school. I went to high school. I got a job at grade 11. And then once I started making my own money, I was like, hey, I can make my own money. I don't really have to be supported by my parents. And I hated being at home. So I'm like, man, I'm going to move out. As soon as I'm done high school, I'm moving out of this house because I didn't like being there. And I drank all the time. I partied all the time. I had my own money. So I was like, why not? So when I moved out, I ended up moving in with a girlfriend. Again, we would just party, and I was working, and like, I just thought at that time I didn't have, all I knew was that I wanted to make money. I didn't have like a goal to go back to school. I didn't have a goal to, what I wanted to pursue as far as my education went or what I wanted to be. I just knew that I loved to party. I loved alcohol and I loved to have a good time, and I was working. So I was like, as long as I keep working and I know that money's coming in, I'm fine. So, I ended up becoming a gang member. I ended up getting into a lot of trouble. I ended up messing around with my license quite a bit, drinking and driving quite a bit. Then alcohol kind of took its big turn for me when I met my ex. And my ex, when I met her, she had a 9-month-old baby. And being a part of a small family for me was like, wow, I really like this. I really love being a part of this. And then her and I had our own baby. I've never seen my stepson as my stepson. He's always been my baby. He's always been my son. And till this day, he's 16 years old, and I still see him the same. He's not never changed in my view and in my heart. But when her and I had Michael, our second, we we had a lot of issues, and mainly for me, it was the fact that I never could put down alcohol. I continued to work. We agreed for her to be a stay-at-home mom. We never, at that time we just knew that money needed to come in. We had these two little boys, and we needed to make our family work, right? And at the time we were in love and all that, but we still had our issues, right? I can only take responsibility from my side of things, right? Like, I can say that I definitely dropped the ball when it came down to being more attentive to her as a partner, to the boys too, because they were little, and all I knew that I needed to keep working. And I think that for me, the alcohol just never left my hand. Everything I did was alcohol included. David's going to get up to go to work, alcohol included. David's going to go to work and can be at work, alcohol included. He's going to come home and try to be a dad and a partner, alcohol included. He's going to go to bed, alcohol included. So it was like, for me, that's when it really started taking a turn. And then her and I, we started having more of a marital issue for many things. And then in that kind of turmoil, our third child, all of a sudden was coming. And Nicholas, he came out of nowhere. And it was like, if she was here, she'd probably be like, hey, that's not how it happened. And I can say that because her and I we've been able to reconcile and have a good relationship now. So I joke around about that. When Nicholas was born, we were just not in a good spot, and even I thought in my head, because my parents stuck through it through thick and thin and are still together to this day, I thought that that's what a family needed to do, regardless of the problems regardless of what was going on, because what my family always did was just sweep everything under the rug. Whether, and that's what I was trying to do, is just, well, let's just stay together, and that wasn't an option for her. And I agree with, like, at that time, I don't understand. And I look back at it now, a lot of my memories from back then, just because of the alcohol and my mental state, are not the best memories. So I could be saying things wrong right now. But from my recollection, that's not something that she couldn't sustain the family just with by herself. And she needed to do what she needed to do for herself. When we broke up, that was kind of like the nail in the coffin for me when it came down to alcohol. Um, I kind of, the shame and guilt for me, and the fact that I lost the family and I lost everything, just solidified for me that I couldn't handle life. And I said, if I can't handle life, then I'm just going to drink. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to hold on. And I think that's what kept me holding on, was the alcohol. The fact that I couldn't deal with my emotions and I couldn't deal with reality kept me, like, my mental health was so bad that I thought of suicide many times. Like, I was a failure. I was a failure as a dad. I was a failure as a son. I was a failure as as a person, as a brother, just everything. But if I allowed myself a little moment of clarity or a little moment of feeling the feelings, that's when those thoughts would come in. So what I would do is I would drink to keep those negative thoughts away. And so alcohol actually kept me in this world of rinse and repeat, wake up, rinse and repeat. And so that way you don't have to feel those feelings. So for me, after our breakup, I spent years of just completely in a I guess in a dream, in a state of alcohol induced coma, I would say, of not even knowing who I was. I wasn't working. I lost my business. I lost all the ties to what I was doing as far as painting and renovations went. And my brother saw me deteriorate. I did things to him that he did. I'm surprised he still talks to me till this day, over. My family thought they lost their son. I was in a complete shamble of just, of destruction. So I kept my distance away from everybody, including the kids, including my ex. I got into gangs again. I got into, living a life of just, I don't know, criminal activity, of hanging out with the people that I shouldn't be hanging out with. And alcohol was always included. So I ended up just kind of making some really bad decisions that ended up getting me caught. And I ended up almost going into prison for quite a long time. And my during that time, I guess at the end of that, I had met Aimee, and it was kind of a big fluke. It was kind of like a um I look back at that moment now, and it's kind of like life was putting me in a position of, hey, like, let's just go this way, please, because you're either going to end up dead, you're going to end up in jail, or worse. Let's just go this way. So I think when I met Aimee, which was through a mutual friend, she met me at a moment where I was broken, but we just didn't know it. I think she didn't really know what she was getting herself into by meeting me. And her and I were really, we became friends at first. We weren't looking into being in a relationship together. Aimee currently, at that time, she was in a relationship, and I wasn't looking for anything solid. Like, I was just kind of still in that dazed and confused and destruction kind of mode for my life. I didn't care to bring anybody down with me. So one day I decided that I was just done. My heart was really heavy. I didn't feel like doing it anymore. And the only thing that I could think of doing at that time was leaving, taking whatever clothes I had on my back, whatever I had in my pockets. And I remember calling Aimee and saying to her, listen, I'm done. I can't live this life anymore the way I am. I miss everything. I miss my family, my kids, everything. And, Aimee was just like, yeah, just, if you want to come over, come over. And she opened the doors, and I kind of went into hiding away from the world for a few months. Everybody was looking for me, even the people that I used to work with. And, I needed to hide. And I know that a lot of people in that time just didn't agree with my choices, but I wasn't doing it for them. I wasn't doing it for please other people. At that moment, I realized that I just needed to leave. For me, I wasn't okay, and I wasn't going to continue being okay if I kept being where I was. So thankfully, Amy kind of, she opened the doors to me, and I then became our relationship where thankfully I was able to leave with my life, and thankfully um I was able to do the time that I needed to do from getting arrested and paying the consequences of my actions then. But since I was free, I didn't really have any plans of life at that moment. I kind of just was here with Amy. Okay, let's start over. But then the biggest problem for me was the alcohol. Like, I didn't put down the
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. I was in a state of I'm gonna continue drinking, but now that my life is kind of like at a nowhere state, I'm gonna start, I guess, start working and start doing things again like a normal person, but I just didn't know how. But let's include alcohol, right? That was kind of like where I was at. And I know that Amy didn't have any plans either. She didn't really she was supporting me, but I think for you, you didn't know what to do either, right?
I was always in just a state of like, okay, I'm just going to do one day at a time. And like, okay, this week, this week, this week. And then it just kept going.
Yeah.
It just kept doing the same sort of things again. Work, party, sleep, work, party, sleep.
Yeah. And that's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
for her and I, then COVID started. And I'm trying to think about this chronologically, how it happened, right? COVID started, and at that time we had a couple of roommates here and stuff. And you could think, like since COVID's happening, Canada also would give like sustain people, they would give a certain amount of money for each individual that lives in Canada, as long as you're a citizen or you're a resident. They would give you like $2,000 to live monthly. All of that money for us, since nobody was working, the bills were really low. You're just basically paying for rent. So in the house, we have four people. We had like $4,000 for all of us to live. It was like a lot of it went to alcohol. And all
Mm-hmm.
of us were drunk consistently every single day. I remember not having anything other than just the fact that we're just gonna wake up and I guess do it again. It was, it sounds like just like a broken record to continue on living like that. You can imagine how much alcohol was being consumed. Um,
There was never any growth or any thought or like talking about what the future looked like. There was never, there was never any talk of like, okay, so in 4 years from now, what are we going to look like? What are we going to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
We never really talked about that. We never thought about that really, there,
so
that's what
Now,
I
did
think was wasn't it?
Amy, you didn't have a problem like that with alcohol, right? You just party sometimes and that
No.
was it, or what was your relationship with alcohol?
Well, my relationship with alcohol has been since I was as long as I can remember. My parents had me and my sister quite young. My mom's 21 years older than I am. So, they were young parents, and in the 80s, young parents had parties, and alcohol was always around. It was always around me. And so I also grew up with knowing that it's okay to drink, just do it safely. My parents always told me, don't drink and drive. If you ever need a ride home, you call us. We'll come get you, no questions. They made it sound like it was a safe, fun thing to do. And, my dad was an alcoholic, but there were some things that, I learned at a young age of what being drunk was and what the consequences of alcohol were. And so I feel like, I started drinking at a young age, what, 15? 14, 15, and I grew up in a small town, so there wasn't a whole lot to do other than that. And it was always fun. I never drank I mean, there were times that I would drink because there was an issue, because there was a problem and I wanted to numb it out. But, when I grew older, um I started working in the bars. So working in the bars was, I feel like alcohol never had a huge negative effect on me, in the sense of that it was always done in a positive way. There wasn't a lot of negative alcohol usage in my life. But if I look at it now, then yes, it probably was because of negative things that I did that. And sometimes it became a problem, and working behind a bar, it's all around you, right? But it's always been there in my life. So it was never not there. And yeah, it's just I was in cocktail competitions trying to be like, professional bartender and doing all of that stuff, which I really, really enjoyed. And then I started doing bar management. And that's sort of when it took more of a toll on me because of the stress and the amount of stress doing that job was high. So the drinking became more of an issue, but never an issue to the extent that David's drinking was. I could stop. I enjoyed having drinks. And once I was having drinks, I liked having them to keep going.
I think I think your drinking was more primarily done at work because
Yeah.
everybody's drinking and you're
It came
around
with the
it,
territory.
and it's such a social thing. So then everybody
me,
would go
yeah.
after the bar and party together, and it was more like just your
drinking
kind of
was-
lifestyle. But yeah, for me, my drinking just became a
Constant.
keep my mental health not to keep my mental health, sorry, to keep myself from my emotions, to keep myself from my reality of my life, to keep myself in a state of mentally, I guess what I would say, a mentally ill person to be able to do things that I wouldn't normally do. Like I was doing things that I shouldn't be doing that I convinced myself it was okay because I was intoxicated. I was like, fuck it, everything's fine. I'm going to do that. So it was like, I think with each and every drink that I took, it was more of like, it was making me more ill. Where I think Amy's was just like social,
It
let's
was more
drink, let's
social.
party.
For me,
Yeah.
I'm a very shy person without alcohol. So it really brought me out of a shell and it got me, talking to people and making friends and this and that. So for me, it was definitely more social and yeah, it brought me out more and also like as a kid we were never told like this is not good for you. This is not something that you should be doing. This isn't, you know, I grew up as like, yeah, it's okay to have drinks on the weekend. It's okay, to have a few drinks here and there. And was never told about the consequences of long-term drinking.
I think what is interesting now that you guys had a couple of things. First, when you said professional bartender, you made me think of my old past, Abigail, the party animal. And I was in Vegas. And as we know, like, Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas or whatever, right? It's the party place to be here in the States. But they were recording a show for bartenders, and it was in the MGM where the usually where the boxers go and stuff like that, right? And I remember the one of the questions that they were making these bartenders is like, make me your best drink. Like you had to make your best drink to win that show. Can you believe I used that thing, that tagline when that same night I went to all the to the bartenders with the story. Yo, you have to make me the best drink. There's no, like, I didn't want nothing from the menu. It's going to be Amy's drink, and you have to go all out. Just think about it as a show that has to be the best drink so you can win against other people. And I will get the strongest and craziest drink you can think of. And I did that for years, and it always worked because bartenders sometimes are bored of making the same things. So when someone comes along to the lines of just make me whatever, right, you will see their like their face will light up. And that was you made me realize that. But another thing is that you said is the social anxiety. Yes, for a lot of people, alcohol it's a thing that helps them, right? Like get them out of their shell. Because I truly believe it is there. It's just giving you that little push that maybe when you are sober, you have to do it on your own and you have to push yourself a little bit harder, but it's still there. It's still the Amy that will do the same thing just without it. So that was another thing that I saw. And for you, Esco, do you think you were dependent to alcohol, like physically dependent on it?
I was 100% dependent, but I wanted to go back to something that you just said because my ex says one thing about now that we're able to talk and see how much all of us have grown, like Aimee and I and her, we're really at a spot where we've taken growth and really make it a priority for the boys. So we talk a lot about alcohol and on how it has affected her and affected me and Aimee and like just the people around us that we care about. And she always says, like we as human beings, we have everything in ourselves and in our bodies that we need. We don't need to add anything else, right? Like we are built in a way that human beings are more than capable of being able to attack any situation or to go through anything in life and be able to come out winning or doing it in the best possible way we can. We just, what it is that a lot of us haven't really, I guess, explored that part of us because we have inhibited us. We have inhibited ourselves with substances. Like alcohol kept me from feeling things, kept me from growing as an adult, kept me from maturing, kept me from, like Amy's talking about this social anxiety. Like when you're socially anxious and you haven't been able to explore that part of you where you can come out of your shell a little bit and feel more comfortable. Like social anxiety, I think it's a normal thing. Like having a bit of anxiety for anything, it's just your body's way of like reacting to the situation, right? But a lot of us, what happens is like as soon as we start
Yeah.
feeling a negative or an intense feeling, we're like, oh man, let's handle this and put a substance in ourselves so that we don't have to deal with it as hard, So what happens is we're never allow us that little bit of that little bit of natural way of dealing with it because we're dealing with alcohol, right? But yes, I was physically dependent on it. So I realized that when I got sober for the first time. I started that year was a really bad year. I was facing criminal charges. I was about to go to jail, and I said to myself, I'm going to drink and drink to such an excess point that I wouldn't remember what happened during the day, just because I was so worried about going into prison and what was going to be of my life. So I would tell Aimee I would buy these big bottles of whiskey and like just a bunch of alcohol every single day. And Aimee would be like, why do you have to drink that way? And I'd be like, well, that's just what's happening today, And she
There's
was,
no way
Mm-hmm.
I could tell him other.
yeah, there wasn't any way that she could tell me, hey, stop drinking. I'd be like, no, I'm not. Stop. Don't tell me what to do. And
I do have a question now before you go with that for Aimee, because I think it just started to see her perspective. So you were starting to drink in, big amounts, right? Every day.
yeah.
Aimee, when was the point that you were like starting to realize, okay, I think this is the problem. It's no longer just party or, trying to
Yeah,
minimize a problem for
because
a bit.
I mean, yeah, it was probably after COVID. And, at that point, right after COVID ended, or the lockdown ended, I started managing a brand new restaurant. And I was like, okay, I want to make this place really great. I want to really do a good job. And, I had to be really busy all the time. And I wasn't drinking quite as much, I think. And because I was trying to run a restaurant. And then it just sort of started to creep up that, David was coming into the bar and, I could actually see how much he was drinking because he was be drinking at my bar. So I I actually started realizing how much he was actually drinking because David is a type of person that if you didn't know him, you wouldn't know that he was drunk. Like it was like he was just
Yeah,
a
he doesn't get
normal person that
sloppy. Yeah.
no, he doesn't get sloppy. He doesn't, so you would never really realize how much he had been drinking. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's when I sort of started realizing how much it actually was.
The thing is, though, is that we've had this discussion before, is that people didn't know me sober.
Yeah.
So I was always consistently drunk every day. Nobody ever talked to me while being sober. Nobody knew what I looked like. Nobody knew how I acted. So there was David when I woke up, which was still drunk because I would drink during the night and wake up drinking, take a shower drinking, and start my day with alcohol. So you didn't
They
know
didn't have a
me
point
wouldn't,
of
sober.
reference. Yeah, they didn't. They didn't
Yeah,
have a
there was
point
no
to
knowing.
see.
And so, yeah, I think I do remember there were times where I was like, hey, like just thinking to myself, like having my dad as an alcoholic, like, what am I doing exactly here? Like, why am I following this pattern that I know is not going to go well? Like I never really looked to the future. I looked as like, okay, well, we can solve this problem when it gets to that problem. So I think it was probably right around David's sentencing that was really quite scary because it was in December as well. And, his drinking had gotten just really amped up. And I was scared. I was like, I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know what is this going to look like for us. Right. So, and like I said, I would ask him to, slow it down or stop and he would just be like, well, no, this is just the way it's going to be. So
That's deep,
knowing
yeah.
that, then I would drink a little bit more just to tolerate what he
Hmm.
was doing. So,
Yeah. And so leading up to that, the physical dependence for me, I didn't know, like I knew I was dependent on it because I couldn't do anything without it. I couldn't get up to go to do anything, absolutely nothing. And it's funny because I was about to start my electrical course. So during COVID, I realized that I'm like, I don't want to go back to painting and renovations because it reminded me too much of my old past. It reminded me too much of bad times. I didn't know what to like. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have a change. I'm gonna change my career. So I decided to get into electrical. But because of that sentencing, when they told me, hey, you're not gonna go to jail. You're gonna do house arrest. I was like, okay. I'm gonna do house arrest. That's awesome. I'm also gonna start one of the reasons why I got into electrical was because my lawyer said get into school so that way they can keep you out of jail. So it worked. It helped. And so when the sentencing was done, my lawyer's like, well, I guess you're going to school now then. And I was like, well, great. That's awesome. I'm gonna go. But as soon as I got home that day, I went and drank out of celebration. And I remember the whole rest of December was just a big blur for me. January came by and I ended up, January, the first week of January is when I started the class. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever. I'm not working at the time. I'm gonna just drink. And I ended up falling and hitting myself on the back of the head and on my driveway. It was snowing that
Wow.
day. And I remember just coming and I was running back from home from the liquor store. And when I fell down, I didn't feel good for the rest of the day and I still drank. I woke up the next day thinking that I had caught COVID. One of my guests that came over for New Year's gave me COVID, and I woke up feeling just like utter death. Like I felt so bad, like how you would catch COVID, right? So I'm like, you know what?
Hmm.
I caught COVID. I'm gonna stop drinking.
so
And
drinking.
for anybody listening, if you drink the amount of alcohol that I do, it's really dangerous for anybody to quit drinking just cold turkey. Please seek medical attention because I didn't know that, I had heard about alcohol withdrawal syndrome. I didn't know what it looked like, but I literally stopped drinking cold turkey for 3 days. I felt like shit for 3 days. On the third day, I remember I started my electrical course and I started hallucinating vividly, auditory, visually. And if you read up what acute alcohol withdrawal syndrome is, it'll tell you what can happen. You can go into seizures and ultimately cause death
And brain damage.
and brain
Wow.
damage. And so when I was going through Aimee was there to witness it and I was like, hey babe, like I can see people in the house. I'm who is this little girl in the house? We have a dog. All of a sudden there's like animals in the backyard that don't exist. The trees are coming out of the ground and growing limbs. So Aimee got worried and she's like, I'm taking you to the hospital. And I tried to convince her and another friend of mine that there was bugs all over the house.
I had to wash every single blanket and pillow in the whole house.
Yeah, it was kind of
Do you
looking
think
back at.
were you able to notice that it was your mind, or you really thought that it was happening?
So this is the thing for me, I thought it was really happening, but I had no inclination that it could have been from the alcohol. Like I thought that I was just sick with COVID and I thought COVID was giving me hallucinations. So, but at the same time, because I was in like, it's reality, this is what's really happening, I didn't question it.
No.
So I was just going through the
And
hallucinations.
like the more we got, so it was a 24-hour period of start to David being in the hospital, when his hallucinations started, or I think, no, it was 12 hours from the start to the doctor. It progressively got worse and worse and worse. And him believing what was actually happening. Like at first he was like questioning it. And then like by the time we got to the hospital, he was like fully believing everything.
That has to be
And
scary
it was really scary. It was incredibly scary.
When
for
we
you
ended up
too, because you're
going,
like, he's losing his mind.
Yeah. Like I was like, he was like pulling fake hair out of his mouth and like thinking that there was a bone coming out of his finger, and like it was the most strangest things, and it was incredibly scary.
yeah, and I'm over
What did
here
they
like,
do at the hospital to calm you down? Did they give you medication? What
Yeah,
they do?
they give you lorazepam,
so
Ativan,
so
high
basically,
dose.
okay, they kind of like, what happens is like they gave, so when I went in, they didn't know what was wrong with me because I had 3 days of sobriety. So when they did a toxicology report and they did blood tests, nothing came back as I had alcohol blood or blood alcohol in
Blood.
my blood or drugs in my system. So they're like, we don't know, we've done like we know that you're not feeling well because your blood pressure and all that stuff is out of whack, but we can't seem to find the reason why. And like, are you sure you didn't take any medication? Are you sure you're not on any drugs? I was like, I'm 100%. I'm like, but look at that on the wall. It's talking to me, you know? And so I was trying to convince the doctors, right, about the hallucinations
Yeah.
that I was seeing, and they're like, David, we see nothing. Like that, even the doctor would put up his hand, and I'm like, this thing in the wall spitting at me, and they couldn't find, like, they're just like, we don't know. And until one of the doctors came and he asked to see the
Mhm.
pupils in my eyes, and he saw that I was jaundiced, that they were really yellow. So they said to me, they're like, when's the last time that you had a drink? And I said 3 days ago. And he said, are you a heavy drinker? And I said, yes, very heavy. And I explained to him how much. And right away, he knew exactly what was wrong with me. He was like, we need to get this guy sedated. Your brain is super active right now that it will go into brain damage. We need to sedate you. So yeah, lorazepam and Ativan is what they gave me. Usually, going through this twice now, because that was the first time, I realized that what it is what they're trying to do is they're trying to put your mindset, your head and your mind in a state of just relaxation, right? Like when you're going through withdrawals, your brain is going, like your central
It's like
nervous
brain
system is,
activity, right? Like your brain activity,
yeah, your
it's
central
really
nervous. Yes.
yeah.
And like your body's reactions, your brain activity is just going out of whack, your nervous system's out of whack. So your blood pressure shooting up all over the place and dropping really quickly. And that's very dangerous. Like seizures can happen. So what's happening in your body is like that physical dependence that I had to it was the level that I reached that almost killed me, right? So at that point, at that moment, they said, we're going to put you to sleep. They sedated me. They said we need to tranquilize you. And,
Oh
when
my
they
God.
tranquilized me, I woke up 24 hours
24
later,
hours.
and I woke up feeling like a truck had hit me. I had no idea where I was. I was like, what happened? You know, that was kind of like the start of my real sobriety. I had tried in the past, but never for any kind of reasons. So when for me physically, my body's saying, okay, no, you can't drink anymore. And waking up for the doctors after a week, they told me, they're like, David, you can't keep doing this. Your body's saying no. Your liver numbers, your enzymes are through the roof. You need to get back to normal. You're gonna die from liver failure. And so I made a choice that day and I said, put me on some medication. I need to get sober. Long story short, I lasted a year and a half. And in that year and a half, I managed to do really some incredible things. Aimee and I we got married. I was able, the best part about that year and a half is that I had spent such a long time away from my children and from talking to my ex that I was finally able to speak to them again and to get them back into my life and for me to get back in their life. And we thought everything was fine. You know what I mean? I had done so many great things that I got to a point where I really started feeling confident of myself. I did it with medication at first. I kind of weaned myself off of the medication, and I thought, yeah, I'm kind of healed. I'm great. I'm good. You know, like, look what I've done. And my own brain started playing a lot of head games with me, thinking that I could moderate again. You know, I didn't really change my lifestyle. I still wanted people and friends around me that would still drink. I'm like, I don't want people to look at me different. I don't want to be excluded out of things. I want to keep my friendships. I want to be able to keep doing what I do just without the alcohol.
Yeah.
So Aimee was still working at the bars too.
And like David he quit drinking alcohol, but didn't grow in any other way of realizing what the problem actually was.
Yeah. I just didn't really understand that there was anything left to do. I just thought removing alcohol was enough because I'm not drinking, and that should be enough, you know? And for me, I never thought I was going to have an alcohol problem. I never thought I was going to be an alcoholic. I always thought that I had enough strength within my own body that I was going, and I knew, like, I just thought that I was the master of my own universe. I didn't think that a substance was going to have such a control over my head, over me. You know, my past version of myself just never, you know, I had a lot of pride and a lot of ego, thinking that I could just do this all on my own. And Aimee was still working at the bars too. And our friendship group, our friends.
At that point, I was managing 2 bars.
Yeah. And I was still going to
recommend for anyone to do.
Exactly.
It was very, very incredibly stressful. And
yeah, I imagine.
The amount of stress that I was having, like, I can't imagine if I was doing that job and David was drinking. It would have probably killed.
And honestly, that's where it was. Yeah. Like, for me being sober and her being at the bar, I told her as well, I'm like, this is my journey. Please do not stop drinking for me on my account. Continue doing what you do. I want my friends to continue looking and hanging out with me and doing what they do. I just want to be able to always be included, right? So I didn't understand that there was so much work that you need to do to have any kind of sustainable sobriety, to be able to have any kind of real growth. I didn't even know what growth could actually be like. I just, you know, I would think about it and be like, man, I wonder how people like that are over there, like, I would look at all of these people that have chosen sobriety and they're thriving and they're just being like that. I'm like, I wonder how that feels like, because I don't feel like that at 1.5 years, you know? And so thankfully I had my kids with me. Like, I felt great. I felt like things were really, but there was always these doubts. There was always these questions within me that I could never answer for myself, you know? But I didn't search for I didn't read any books. I didn't talk to people. I didn't reach for a support group or nothing. I know my ex and Aimee would tell me all the time, hey, you should probably talk to someone, you know? But I'm like, man, I got you guys, and look what I've done in 1.5 years. I'm great. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. You know, and it was crazy because, like, when we got married, Jackie, my ex, is during that time. And unfortunately, because of the fact I was drinking before, and when Aimee and I decided to get married and to start our journey as a couple, they didn't get included into our wedding plans. And I regret that. I do, because I don't ever want my kids to think that I put them aside, and it wasn't like that. Like, but I didn't know yet at that time in my life that my life was going to get to a point where I was going to be able to be sober for 1.5 years and then be able to have them back in my life. So I kind of just said to myself, I'm going to continue on in my path and then just see what happens. And then so when the boys came into my life, the plans of us getting married and all of that, they were already there. And so we did get married without my kids there, which I think we both regret. But that's another reason why I don't like alcohol. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't in the headspace, and I think Aimee too as well. She looked at me as kind of like, even though I was kind of messed up, like, I'm her partner, right? Like, she's depending on me to let her know what it is we need to do when it comes to regarding the boys, right? And so I regret that as well. But so, like I said, you know, not being able to really look at sobriety for what it really is and for what it really should be. And when I say that, it's everybody's journey is different. Like my story is going to look very different than the next person's. My story is very different than Amy's and yours, Abby, right? And also my mental state, my mental health, my upbringing also goes into play. And one day when I had the kids with us in the summer, we went to a wedding and we were all kind of like, my drinking started periodically during that, I guess, the last half of that year that I was sober, because I would play around and think with myself, like, why can't I moderate? I need to be able to, like, I need to know that, like, I feel like alcohol, I can put alcohol back in. I think I can control it this time.
He wanted to join the fun, I guess, in a way. Like he would see me still drinking and see our friends. We'd hang out with them and us being able to have drinks and live normally and like wake up the next day and be okay. And he's wondering, why can't I be that way? And I want to try to be that way.
Yeah. I started making the choice of drinking again, and that quickly turned sour real quick. I had the kids with me under my care, and I started drinking, trying to hide it away from them, trying to hide it from my wife, which she knew very well that I was drinking again. I mean, we had discussions about it, that I had drank and that I was drinking. And, you know, I think Amy was trying really hard to maintain a household with being a new stepmom, not ever parenting before, thinking that alcohol was not going to be an issue in our life anymore. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it starts becoming an issue again.
Like literally overnight.
Yeah. And like,
So one day you just opened a bottle, or what happened?
Just at the wedding, he just decided,
yeah,
I'm gonna have a drink today.
yeah.
And I said,
Are you
sure?
guys
Are
wedding?
you sure you
No. At my wedding, I didn't.
sober?
I was the only one sober, other than my parents. And so, yeah, for me, it was. You know how we talk about a slip happens long before
Before, yeah.
you actually, before you actually drink. So that's what started happening with me. But yeah, there was one distinct moment that I can speak about that was literally where everything took off, and we were just at a wedding, at a friend's wedding, and my kids were there that day. And I ended up turning to Amy and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna drink today." And she said, "Are you sure? Like, don't drink." And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna drink. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But nobody can stop me." You know what I mean? And that David was just looking for his own, like, didn't care obviously about himself. I'm sorry, about anybody around him. Only cared about himself. So I woke up hungover that day, the next day, and I ended up continuing to drink after that. And then it just went into really bad snowball and really bad spiral real fast, real quick. And
Because he was drinking just pretty much as he was before the year and a half. So imagine not drinking for a year and a half and then continuing to thinking that you can drink the same amount.
Mhm.
yeah, anybody who's ever relapsed hard like that can tell you that relapsing is actually more dangerous than the first time that you ended up getting sober. Like, relapsing for the human body is actually, I think it's like 10 times worse for you to actually have physical and negative effects. So the alcohol hit me hard. And I ended up taking my kids back to their home when their mom arrived from her trip, intoxicated. And they noticeably saw me intoxicated, and their uncle saw me intoxicated. It was a really, really bad scene, and like Jackie needed to make the decision to keep me away from the kids again from that moment on, and I know that it was a really heartbreaking decision for her, because I was, it was her kids, and she's mama bear. Like, she's, she calls the boys her three cubs, she's like, she's a tiger when it comes down to the boys. And I will always say this, like, she's the best mom out there that I've ever seen. And she's always been the best mom. She's always looked out after the boys, and I don't blame her for doing what she needed to do, At that moment,
I think something
realized,
before you go, something that you said, it's like we say, you start flirting with the decision again. That's how I call it. Like, you start flirting with Well, I can drink. If I could stop, right, that the one that we use a lot. If I was able to do this 1 year and a half, who says, right, that I cannot drink normally? But the thing is, it's not really just normally, it's the fact that once you go back to drinking, like for example, yours, you went back to drinking the same amount. It's not like you took one drink and put it down. You know what I mean? That led you to going back, drinking a lot, getting a hangover, and continue to drinking to the point that you drove your kids in an intoxicated state, which is putting your life in their lives. And those are the moments when alcohol is taking over your brain. Because I know the David that I know would never, you will give your life before you do put your kids in harm's way. But that's just to see what alcohol does. It makes you completely blind to reality. And you thinking that you're driving the best when in reality you have three kids that you love with your life and yourself in a position where anything can happen. Then you get to the house, right? I don't blame her, for example, for doing that at one moment, just because I guess that what she saw was like, my kids are in danger. You lost her trust. I'm guessing that's what happened. And then you had to
Yeah.
start all over
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah. And, ultimately also as well, like she even gave me a chance to be able to come out and tell her the truth and tell her what was going on. She came over to the house, but there was a lot of emotion there. And I wasn't in the state that I am now. Like the person that she saw that day, when she confronted me isn't the same David that is completely transparent and open now. I couldn't talk to her the way that I did not do now, right? And so I was really hesitant to open up to her at that moment because I knew what was coming up. I knew that, hey, my kids are being taken away from me at this moment. And she was also angry with Aimee as well. Like she blamed Aimee for a lot of this because in her eyes, like, how can this happen in your house? I put the kids in your trust. They're supposed to be safe, and they're obviously not safe. And you two were supposed to be their parent. And how dare you, Aimee, you know, allow for this to happen when you also were the ones who were supposed to be watching over our kids, you know what I mean? And so for her, like I said, I don't blame her for what she did. And at this point, we've talked about it and we've been able to heal from it. And it's only been because of what she sees now. You know, I found, the reason why I know you, Abby, is because of Reframe, right? So when I relapsed, I spent 5 months in that kind of like shame spiral, that guilt spiral. The moment that I knew my kids were gone, I kind of didn't have anything that I wanted to live for. Even though I was in a marriage, even though I had, I still had a job, thankfully. I was going to work intoxicated. But I told my boss that I said, I just couldn't do work, and so uh, I I didn't know at that time for that 5 months, I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I needed to get sober somehow. From the moment I started drinking, from the moment that I knew the boys were gone, from the moment that I knew my life was just in shambles again, I said, I need to get sober. But I just couldn't do it. Like I couldn't be brave enough to take that leap because I had put everything in. I felt like I had put everything in for that year and a half of sobriety, and I had that shame of, how the hell did I let everything go? Like, how did I drop the ball so
Mhm.
hard? How did I do this? Like, who did I just turn into? And like how you're just explaining, it's like, I'm a normal person right this moment. As soon as I get a drop of alcohol in my body, and we have a coach on Reframe that talks about becoming a psychopath as soon as that alcohol hits me, and that's exactly what happens to me. Not every single person out there is the same as me, and Aimee doesn't turn into a psychopath when she drinks. My ex doesn't turn into a psychopath, but I do. I turn into a person that doesn't care about himself or anybody around him, and so
How
I
long
had to
did you
come to that
drink
real
again? How many months?
for 5 months. For five
So
months.
you went like in a bender for 5 months?
I went into a huge bender for 5 months. There was like a
Wow.
small glimmer of a voice in the back of my head saying, David, you need to get sober. And then I would drink more just to quiet that voice and not to listen.
I think it was like 4 months in is when you started really trying to stop and reaching out to, there's a program here in BC that nurses actually help you detox from home. So they come to your house and they get you like all your medications, your daily medications. They come in daily to check your vitals, but you detox from home,
I had to
which
do some
was
really deep digging to find that
which is
program
really
though.
nice.
Because of what I did was I knew that the hospital helped me the first time around. So I said, let's go to the hospital. Let's see what we can find out there. And the hospital actually turned me away. They said, go back home, sleep it off. They didn't take me seriously. They didn't take me seriously in the fact that I said to them, guys, like I am physically dependent on alcohol. I need help to stop. And so they didn't care. They sent me home with 2 pills and they're like, just sleep it off. And I couldn't. I continued drinking. And then I ended up calling some nurses line. They gave me phone numbers to call. I ended up talking to a doctor. He told me that I was a good candidate for that program. They did 2 in-home detoxes. They didn't stick. Like one of them lasted a week, the other one lasted a couple of weeks. And then after that, I couldn't um like I couldn't call them without crying because I was like, guys, I did it again. I need more help, please. And they're like, no, 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 just call us. Please call us if anything happens. And this is a message to anybody listening. I know that, it's shameful and guiltful when you end up having a long period of sobriety and you end up relapsing. But look, like it's part of it. Like it's not a I'm not saying that you should do it. I'm not saying that that's like you should be like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go drink because this is part of it. That's not it. No, resist as much as possible. Don't go back to the alcohol. Like the only way that you can get yourself out of it is to be able to have a long period of long lasting sobriety. But relapses are a reason why I found out that alcohol just wasn't for me anymore. But I searched for help. So don't stop asking for help. Don't stop coming back. Don't stop coming to the community. Don't stop just, don't give up. And
Find your community.
yeah. And so, what I ended up happening was at the third time, I think Amy told the nurses that, hey, he needs help.
I actually
You need to
called the
take.
nurses myself and said, David can't do this at home. You guys need to get him into the inpatient help. And the next day they called and they're like, we have a spot for you.
It usually takes about
And
6 weeks.
sometimes it's like 3 months of wait time to
And
get in.
they told me don't stop drinking till the moment that you get in. It's unhealthy for you. You're at high risk of death. You're at high risk of seizures and of brain damage. So don't stop drinking. And that was when the moment that I said, okay, I won't stop drinking, but I need help. I want to talk to someone. And the only thing I could think about is looking in my phone and being like, is there an app to help me drink, to help me stop? Like I want to talk to someone about this. Thankfully, I found Reframe, and thankfully I logged in and I was I don't even remember taking out my credit card to activate an account. I was like, take my money, I just need help. And,
Mm-hmm.
when I ended up going into the detox center and coming back out, I was in the detox center in meetings, talking with people, listening to people. So I'm 527 days today. Amy's 525. And yeah, a lot of things have changed, like this year and a half has brought so much growth, so much just a different life. Amy decided to stop working at the bars. She couldn't keep
It was,
serving alcohol
yeah,
anymore.
I was getting to a point where I was seeing how it was affecting David. And I was actually, I had slowed down my drinking quite a bit. And then I was just noticing more, like when David had quit for that year and a half, then I had slowed down as well. And then I decided to change my whole career at the age of 40. I was like, let's start again.
Yeah,
That is
that
an
was awesome.
amazing wife you have right there, David. I just have to
Yeah,
say, one,
I
the
actually
fact that
I
that
actually
she was
started
with
serving
you.
in the restaurant industry before I started drinking. So from 14 to 40, I was working in the restaurant industry as my main source of income,
Yeah.
which is
It's
insane.
funny because I was just having a conversation with the mother of we were just talking with Jackie before we did this podcast a few hours ago, and I said to her, I'm going to talk about the boys. I'm going to talk about our relationship and what happened, and like, she was like, yeah, all good. And then she said something I'm like, because yesterday I got a text message from her, and she texted us with her alcohol tracker, and she's also sober, and she's also 500 days sober.
That's just
And it
amazing right
was
there.
there was a moment, honestly, I was on the ropes. I remember because I do building maintenance, so I clean windows and pressure wash high rises here in Vancouver. And I was on the ropes when she sent that, and I remember tearing up. I was listening to this one song that reminds me of my kids too, and I was tearing up. And I know when she listens to this podcast, she's like, "You're a big baby." And but she's gonna, when she told me that, I was just like, "Man, maybe this is why a lot of like she's like I said, she's a great mom. She's held down the boys since day one. If it wasn't for her, like I don't know where anyone like as far as a co-parenting relationship would be, I don't know where it would be, but like so I do give her all the love and respect that she deserves when it comes down to being the mother of those boys. I also said something, and I said, like sobriety, I thought about this yesterday too, like sobriety has brought us together again, you know, as parents. The fact that we're all at 500 days. And then she said, you know what, it's not only just that. She said it's her partner as well is about like, I don't know, he's like over 1,000 days or over like close to 2,000 days, I don't know, but she was like, it's the fact that she's like, Aimee and I are not the same kind of drinkers that you guys are. Her partner is also, the kind of drinker that I am, and I can say that because him and I have known each other since we were 15 years old, and we drank the exact same amount. We were the same kind of people. They are also doing this to support us too, right? Like, but if we were the kind of drinkers, if we were healthy drinkers, I think they would still be drinking too as well. Like,
Yeah.
but I think that like the way that life has brought us all together and has kind of said, hey guys, like you have three boys here, actually four, because there's also her partner's son as well there. So there's four boys that need to be parented the best possible way. Here, life is like, you guys, here's sobriety, here's growth, here's this, and I think all of us have come to a point where we're all just super thankful. I feel like it was meant to be honest with you. Like everything that has happened, even me telling you about the story about what happened to me in the past, and like all of those heartache and pain and everything that has led up to this, it's kind of like, there's something bigger at in hand here. There's a lot to be said about the, God, the universe, whoever's in charge of all of this, saying, "Hey, there is something bigger more than you guys here. You guys need to come together." It
And
brought me
that's
to tears
beautiful.
yesterday.
Yeah, that's beautiful to see what sobriety can bring, right? I see sobriety
Mhm.
as a gift for a second opportunity to do life right. And what I mean life right is the type of stuff that you're saying, co-parenting, getting families together, having those four boys that are growing that need guidance the most right now, and really setting an example for them. Hey, you don't need that substance in order to live life, to be successful, to be good. And they can actually see now the harm too, like you can see, what, my father had a situation with alcohol and took him to a dark place, but he came out because he chose to stop drinking, and that can empower them in the future to stay away, to not get involved in bad situations. Because unfortunately, kids, I have a 19-year-old, and kids this day from middle school, they start with the vaping situation, which is really out of control. Fentanyl is out of control too here, and alcohol. So the fact that
Yeah,
you are showing your kiddos that, I mean, that in itself, it just makes every hard situation that you have to endure worthwhile.
I agree. I agree. Like their mom and I joke around and say, you know what, there's really nothing that these kids can pull over our eyes anymore because we've done it all. And like Aimee included, and now her partner too. Like
For all four of
if
us
all
together.
four of us together are forced to be reckoned Like those kids
Don't
are not.
try
They don't
us.
even know.
They don't
Don't
know.
try any one of us, man. We're
You
way
better
too much.
come clean, buddy. Because if you try to pull one out,
Yeah,
we already did
Yeah,
it.
we've done it all.
yeah. One of
So
us will get you to talk.
what would be one advice or something that you will tell someone that it's starting to consider, or they're just sober curious, whether, they're thinking about it or they already started? What will be your advice for them in this path?
Sure. I mean, I think that my advice would be to, take one day at a time and do the growth and look at the reasons why you were drinking, not just cutting it out.
That's
Yeah,
good.
and take one day at a time.
That's good because she just summarized right now what happened with you. So basically, you cut it out the first time, but you didn't do the work and the growth. That's just summary for you. But then the second
Yeah.
time you went back, you cut it out, but this time you had support. You looked into growing yourself. So that is so
It's
true.
funny. It is funny because thankfully I'm alive and thankfully I'm here to tell you my story, and I would I would want anybody that's listening that has ever heard my story to take my story and look at it as an example of where your life could end up if you continue drinking. I don't ever want anybody to end up where I did. There was so much heartache and pain, and there's so much. I'm lucky that I came back because there was a moment that like I say, I should be dead or in jail. But one of my advices would be, I was having a conversation with someone and they asked me, how do you know when you've healed from this, or is this like a lifelong thing that you have to do? And I went back and I said to them, I'm like, I think you're asking the wrong question. I think the question that you need to be asking yourself is, when you evaluate your relationship with alcohol, ask yourself, what kind of positivity is alcohol or keeping alcohol in my life bringing me? Like, what kind of positive things? Like, do your pros and cons. Like, if I'm going to continue drinking, like, I don't think anybody who's ever questioned their relationship with alcohol in our community, the Reframe community or AA community, you get to a point where you realize that alcohol is bringing me negativity. It's bringing me bad things that I don't like, whether it be physically, maybe it's, giving you high blood pressure, or it's high cholesterol, or it's giving you bad eating habits, or it's ruining your life, your mental health, you know what I mean? Whatever it may be. I think it just evaluate, like, what kind of positive things does alcohol bring into my life, and outweigh the negative and the positive, your pros and cons. If you want to keep drinking and moderating, what is that going to bring me? What kind of positive and negative effects? And if I need to be completely sober, I think that's a hard choice that some people will have to do. And I can tell you this right now, I was reluctant to make this choice too. But because I have basically 3 years of sobriety in my life, I can tell you right now that sobriety and this new life has only brought me joy. It's only ever been the times that I've put alcohol back in that it gets bad. So sobriety is definitely something for me. And yeah, just evaluate pros and cons of drinking for you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sobriety has brought so many things for me. Today is 503 days, so I'm right behind you guys.
Amazing.
Yay.
Yeah. And it has brought so many things, and it's just really, it has brought out the best version of myself, you know. And when I mean that, it's not that I already arrived at that destination, because we know that it's a journey, but it's a journey that I'm truly enjoying, that I'm getting to know myself, that I'm healing. I think healing takes time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But as we move forward, and every day that we make that decision to stay away from that last drink, things just get better. Like I always say, it's not going to be easier, but it will be better. I know you heard that in the past too. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I have seen the growth from David. I remember when you first started in our community, and to see where you have come, and just even the way that you speak, the way we speak, it starts changing, because when you do the work
and you start growing, it's impossible that your output out of your mouth, it's different. It's just you start actually talking with reason, it starts to wade in. And it's just amazing to see that all that pain till now, and to see where you at now, to the point that you have done different podcasts, you sharing your story to help other people, that you were physical dependent. Not a lot of people that I know and share that kind of stuff, because it is a dangerous thing to go through, and you did it, and you are a vivid example what it is to be persistent and to be relentless and to keep fighting for your kids. Now you're back with your kids, which I really, when I saw that Instagram video, like, I'm not kidding, I was so happy. I wanted to keep getting like 1,000 times, because I've seen you cry. I saw you cry for your kids. I saw the pain. I've seen Aimee, just a beautiful, amazing wife next to you, and everything that she has done. Because in reality, she has her own story, very different from yours, but she shows what it means to be a wife that supports this journey. Because I've seen the other way around, when things can go south, and that's harder. To the fact that she changed her career at 40 years old. I mean, I just want to applaud you for it and say that how proud I am for you, because sometimes we minimize the loved ones and what they have to endure. So thank you so much to both of you for being here. It means a lot to me, and to share your story in this podcast.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you.
Abby.
Thank you so much. I want to say the same things back to you too. Like, oh, you are right. We just are different people. We can't go back to being the same. Like, for me to put back alcohol into my body for that little bit of ounce of alcohol, it's like it'll take my soul and bring it back to hell. And that's not where I want to be. I want to be keep living in this heaven, even though it's not, life doesn't get easier. We just get easier at handling it. I feel like we have the tools and the means to be able to handle life so much easier. Like, I'm gonna give a shout out to my ex too, because I see the person that she is now, the growth that she has done, and it's like all three of us are like puzzle pieces coming together.
Yeah.
That fit better. I guess the time apart we all needed to kind of just do like, hey, I need to chisel this part. I need to take away this part and this part that doesn't serve us and doesn't fit. And it's just like, like I said, puzzle pieces coming together the way it should. So thank you.
Yeah, that is so true. So to Jackie too, thank you so much as well, because I know your story. I feel like I know her too, in the best of sense. It's like you say, tough love hurts sometimes, but we got to do what we got to do when we're trying to protect our loved ones. And she knows you, and she's here now, so she has shown compassion, and she's walking the journey alongside with you guys. So I think that's just terrific for all of you. And now, with that said, thank you guys for being here. And for all those listeners, thank you so much for being another podcast. I have another podcast coming next week from a special guest coming soon. And I just wanted to say that if you're a person that is struggling with this journey, or you're just sober curious, I am here to help. Feel free to send me a email, which is going to be in the show below, and we can do a free Zoom meeting and talk about a little bit more. So thank you so much, and see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks.